part of the income side. On the outgoing side, we donated 46,000 euros to mission and outreach. The association there helps with social justice, refugees, and humanitarian aid, as well as the all-important sandwich ministry. A special thanks to Kim Powell and all her team of volunteers for their efforts there. A general increase in costs linked to inflation, as well as non-recurring costs such as costs related to Dean Leard's retirement, which continued in 2022, are now finished. We did have non-recurring expenses related to Dean Tim's arrival and his stay here with us, as well as B&G expenses and administration costs, which were related to the capital campaign. With respect to the endowment, the value at the end of the year stood at $4.1 million. This is unfortunately a 17% decrease for the year. This is important as the value of the endowment determines the amount we can draw each year to assist in the operations of the cathedral. We have a policy, a draw policy, which takes the previous 3 years' average for our draw calculations, so our coming year will be affected by this. As of the end of May, the value of the endowment has been relatively flat for the year. Our cash position is currently sufficient, and there are no worries there. For the 2023 budget, excluding any impact from the investment portfolio, which are typically just paper losses or paper gains, we budgeted a consolidated loss for the year of 73,000 euros. This is a new approach this year because we wanted to provide a ministry budget as well as a buildings and grounds and administration budget. So you'll see in the full report there a new way of presenting the budget. We still talk about consolidated numbers, but with the vestry and with Dean Tim's support, we felt it important to delineate the two. And you can read more about that in my report. What it does mean, though, is that unfortunately our stewardship does not support the ministries and the ministry budget completely. So we've got an 88,000 euro deficit this year. So it highlights the importance of giving and stewardship, as Chris Barnes talked about. We have budgeted an increase from ventures as the COVID effects have dwindled, but clearly we'll need the extra push from our members to continue to support the many ministries we have this year and avoid an additional draw from the endowment. We remain very conscious about spending, but we are conscious also of the inflationary environment. Stewardship within our community and education about giving is important. We need to grow our giving by 15% this year to meet our budget. So I will make my pitch. Please consider increasing your support this year. Thanks to Anne Perret and Chris Barnes for our annual appeal chairs for their efforts. Also, a big thanks to Sarah Sturman, our outgoing communications manager, for her support. And I'd like to welcome as well Rosie Ward, who just joined the staff as a new communications manager this year. We have enormous participation from our online community, which is very exciting. We need to work on getting those folks to support our ministries as well. Very difficult to do that. In closing, I'd like to say that managing and growing our endowment is critical. A big thanks to the Investment Committee co-chairs Barbara Romeo and Ann Swartzen for their valued time managing and reporting on the endowment. If you haven't done so, you might consider joining the Trinity Society as well. This is our legacy gifts and which helps grow the endowment for the support of the cathedral. I'd be happy to answer any easy questions anybody might have. I feel like our report is very complete and has lots of information in there, so please feel free to ask any questions.
Chad, you want to step to the microphone?
Yes, thank you. Is this working?
Yes. Yep.
Good. Yes. Edward, thank you for all of the good work on these accounts. And there is an innovation that is a very useful innovation that you've come up with this year, which is to break out the consolidated figures into 3 different subsections. And each of those is spelled out in great detail. You have the ministry on one hand, you have ventures on the other, and you have the foundation on the third side. We have, starting this year, or starting next Sunday, a fourth, let's call it center of real interest, which is the capital campaign. Now, the capital campaign was treated last year and the year before off book. It's treated in a footnote number 13, and that makes perfect sense because it really hadn't stopped and the expenses hadn't started and we hadn't had a chance to really take a look at the capital campaign as it was moving forward. Starting in 23 and in 24 and 25, we're going to want to look at those figures much more seriously. And we're going to want to have the same kind of breakdown for them that we have for the ministry, for ventures, and for the foundation. So I would suggest that starting this year, we have not 3 breakdowns, but 4, and that we follow what's happening year by year in the capital campaign with as much detail as we have in the other 3 points. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chad. Just for folks to understand, we have a separate bank account within the accounting of the Cathedral for the capital campaign. And so all donations and gifts come into that bank account, and all expenses are taken from that bank account as well. And Carol diligently follows that. Thank you, Carol. And at your suggestion, and I think we've agreed, that we will make a separate accounting and report to the capital campaign so people can follow that. Thank you, Chad.
Other questions or suggestions? Bill, anything coming in online?
Okay, I guess we've done a good job then,
You
huh?
wanted the easy questions, you got it.
I got the easy questions. Thank you.
Send it on to the approval.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the appointment of our statutory auditors. Is there a
second?
Is there a second?
We've got Harriet Riviere.
Harriet,
seconded.
thank you.
All in favor of approving our statutory auditors? Do you want to name them?
Axonexia?
Thank you. Say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Anyone against Axonexio? Motion passes.
Good, thank you. I'd like to make another motion to approve the 2022 accounts and the appropriation of those earnings within the Cathedral.
Do I have a second for approving the accounts? Andrea. All in favor? All right. Any abstentions? Anyone against? Motion passes. Third motion?
Third motion, approval to move to the 11 a.m. service and return to remaining business after the service if over time.
I could make a portion of my report since we're so far ahead of schedule here.
Very good.
Okay.
We'll do that, and we'll hold off adjourning for a bit.
Very good. I want to take, actually, I think I'll take that microphone. I'd like to take my first part of, I do have some comments, which is, I understand by tradition, in the sermon this morning of the Dean's report for the annual meeting, but if I could just share a couple of things here. I have, after this Sunday, I have 8 more Sundays here in Paris, leaving at the end of July. And I'll speak to that a little bit in the sermon as well. I want to thank, first and foremost, the staff of the American Cathedral. It's been tumultuous for them. The dean retires, the new guy comes, kind of unknown, without a long process. And the staff has really stepped up and done amazing, amazing work. Many of them here in the room today. But if I could just say thank you to Carol, to Jeb, to Dennis, who is here, but obviously out taking care of something.
In the back.
Dennis in the back, thank you. To Sarah, who will soon be tuning in from New York City, our communications manager. To Rosie, who has been thrown into the deep end of the pool and is drinking from the fire hose, as we say, from taking on the communications work. To the steady and wonderful ministry of Canon Nat Katz. I want to thank greatly Carol, who has taught me so much about French association law. I am ready to forget it as soon as I can. And Edward, if I might add here, yes, we do have a separate account for the capital campaign, but Carol and I nominate with every new account opened, another account is closed. Timothy Thompson, who is not here today, he's kind of the glue that makes sure that the place runs and operates. There's been no way to even write down his job description because it's always, what do we need to accomplish this week? And we don't have enough staff to get done what we need to get done. And Timothy always does magnificent work as our parish coordinator to keep everything on track. We have many other people who help us, from the nursery to the additional buildings and grounds team. I think we saw the staff. Did I leave anyone out? I'm good at leaving anybody out.
Zach and Andy.
Oh, of course, Zach and Andy. And George. Let's also talk about that. Thank you, Jeb. I've got them in my sermon, so they didn't instantly rise into my mind. You've done a very good thing, and it's very good for the ongoing future of the cathedral that Zach is on sabbatical. He's currently in silent retreat in a monastery in Kentucky. He's soon to go off to Nice for 4 weeks of intense study of the French language, which I think speaks to his desire to make his home here in France going forward. That's a little code language for you all. And some people have said, oh, people go on sabbatical and they don't come back. Clearly, Zach has decided a sabbatical, which means he's coming back, which is very, very good. Andy Dewar, and I think we can speak to Andy's great skills in the success also of the organ campaign, but his ability to keep on making this organ sound as magnificent as he does. We are in great shape there, and my gratitude to Andy. George, our 22-year-old organ scholar, you can conduct our music program while Zach is away. He hasn't even flinched or blinked. Give him a thanks for that amazing and wonderful work that he is doing to hold us together. I believe this is the choir tonight with Evensong, and today is our full choir's last regular Sunday. So if you see a choir member, be sure to thank them today as well.
Sue's saying no. Sue's sermon is saying no.
It's not, no. Soon, though, right? Soon, yeah. All right. Well, it goes to show you how clueless the interim dean is about things going on here. The reason I walked in late is I thought the annual meeting started at 10. All right. So to the staff, thank you very much. Oh, yes, absolutely. Jeb, I called you out specifically there too, didn't I? You aren't going to let me forget that, right? This is an easy thing to do. If I didn't do it too, and I was just thinking about this last week because of my lunch with Jeb, his ability to be institutional memory has been critical for me. And the rising again and relieving us of revenue stress by the tremendous revenue that the Ventures program has been able to generate has been a great stress reliever to me. And in that way, Jeb, I'm very, very grateful. I want to talk just briefly here, so I don't have to do it in my sermon, of something that is in Edward's report and that Mr. Dilley has pointed out, which is trying to understand what our ministry is and what it takes to fund it. And with the vestry, I have been talking a lot about trying to understand the American Cathedral as standing on 4 pillars. So I'm just going to step out here to 4 pillars if the microphone doesn't feed back. What is a church? It has 4 pillars of ministry, just 4. There are 4 things that God calls us to do. The first pillar, you can see how I'm going to use examples, is worship. It's, in many ways, this should be the central pillar. The pillar, worship. The second pillar is pastoral care and pastoral nurture. The third pillar is Christian formation and education. And the fourth pillar is what we refer to here as mission and outreach. That is what a church is. Stands on those 4 pillars. When we put money in the plate, and we're doing this more in the budget and increasing, it funds those 4 pillars. It doesn't fund the lights, the copy machines, the maintenance of the buildings. But we have to do all of those things. No, we have 2 assets that will provide for those things. We have the revenue we're able to generate, like through ACIPS or Ventures. We have the endowment, and those should be enough to provide all of the facility, space, administration that we need to have to support those 4 pillars. So we can be confident that what we give is going to those things and not the leaking roof or the bad refrigerator in the Cannon's apartment. We are not funding those 4 pillars enough. There is a deficit. But as I'm quick to say, I've never known a church to be able to fund those 4 pillars without a deficit, which is also why we have an endowment and outside revenue. The cathedral, one of its strongest pillars is outreach and mission. It's far more than the numbers reflect, because the cathedral itself, in and of itself, is an outreach, is a mission, both for the convocation, for the city, and in many, many ways that don't show up in the budget. It's tremendous. And any church is always attention. Can we do as much in mission and outreach? Can we give away as much as we give? Oh, we need to cut back on that and take care of ourselves. You can never balance a budget on outreach. That's why we give. You have to make that a critical place of not weakening, because if one pillar goes, the whole place topples. Again, that's why we have an endowment. That's why we have revenue from other sources. Worship what I consider the most important pillar, what we're called to do, of worship central to our life, is very, very strong at the cathedral. We know that from music, we know that from our Sunday morning life, the live stream ministry that touches all over the world. The pillar of worship, so fundamentally strong and significant. The areas for growth in the future, as we have spoken in different ways and in different places, are the pillar of pastoral care and Christian formation and Christian education. Those are the parts of the cathedral's life that we all understand need strengthening. That will require more giving. You need more endowment because the buildings are going to cost you more. We need to manifest as best we can and generate revenue from the resources that we have, because it will help cover the deficits that are inherent in a strong congregation. But remember, don't confuse everything that happens in a church, from buildings and copiers and accounting and audits and so on and so forth, from the critical mission to which the church is called: worship, pastoral care, Christian formation and education, mission and outreach. Your 4 pillars are strong. 2 extremely are strong. 2 need strengthening. But don't ever think that you don't have 4 wonderful, powerful pillars holding up the American Cathedral in Paris. That concludes this portion of my report.
And Andrew, let us know that there are perhaps some questions.
I have been a member of this body for 10 years. I consider it dead now. There is no education, there is no Bible study, there is way more missing than 2 or 4 years ago. What are you planning to do about that? What, are you relying only for the new dean to do something, or are you, as the vestry, trying to have more diversity into the program, having more something reliable to the Bible, because it's the foundation of our belief? So what is going to happen about that?
Thank you, Julie. So we are going to work with the new dean to build out those programs of Christian formation and to re-implement such things as Bible study or other types of education that will help us to grow within our Christian values, beliefs, foundation, to grow that pillar that Dean Tim just talked about in terms of Christian foundation and education. This is a time of transition, and that's the role of the interim dean, is really to prepare the way for the arrival of the next dean. So we will look to him and partner with him to ensure that we do have the space that we can work on these 4 pillars.
Okay, so it's logic to have 1 year without any program particular?
So we did have, So we did have Nat's study during Lent regarding art, and that is a program that he has now run for 2 years. The relation of art to the Lenten season. So we can only take note of what you are telling us, Julie, and work with the new dean to ensure that we are providing that space for building our Christian foundation. Are there other questions or comments? Bill, anything from online? Okay, yep. Patricia.
some people who have been very important to the cathedral for decades, for one reason or another, it's not as easy for them to come to the cathedral now. If they worked in the garden, they can't move from the low beds to the high beds as they could before. How can we keep them with us? They want to be here, but I don't think they see where they can participate. So maybe that's part of building out pastoral care. Love to have your ideas.
Thank you, Patricia. Indeed, I was going to answer that should be within our pillar of pastoral care, and that we look for opportunities for those who are, Sophie Bellaway has always been so important in terms of reminding me that she has lived all of the seasons and that she now has the view of what happens from an aging population. So we need to work with people who are perhaps not yet to that point, but are very close, so that we can find ways to keep them present. We also know that pastoral visits are quite important. One of the things that we have heard is that, you're not visiting so-and-so when they're sick or they're, bedbound, etc. One of the problems that we have is having that information. So the clergy and the pastoral care team can't reach out to someone if they don't know that person is in need. So we also need to be the voice and be able to report to Andrew Klutz, who's the head of the pastoral care team, or to the clergy that someone is of need. So none of us unfortunately have this power of being seers. So we need help from all of those who can be the voice. Jocelyn.
And if I may on that
Absolutely.
point, because Jocelyn comes to the microphone. For a person like myself, I have relied entirely on information which does come in rather in very, very small amounts. Harriet's been a very helpful person to me by saying, oh, make a phone call here, or can you stop by and see this person? But the nature of the interim, very difficult to develop an ongoing close pastoral and comprehensive pastoral relationship. This very much will rest on the new dean. When you have a dean retire, there's a great shaking of that foundation. And the reason I make this comment is this is precisely what the new dean will need. Information, contact, patience, help. Oh, you need to know this about this person. They'll never tell you. Well, now don't tell that person that you're telling those secrets, but you need to know this about that. Jeb has been very helpful to me in this regard in many ways, as has Timothy. People will get in this situation of, oh, they don't care about me, or they don't know that I moved, or they didn't know this, that, or the other thing. And even I've seen us miss things in this past year, which is not uncommon in parish life. Agree collectively to the ethos of we are not going to let people fall through the cracks, and keep moving that information and be persistent with the clergy. They haven't heard from you. They need to hear from you. Be persistent with the pastoral team committee. We need to help this person, that person. The nature of a pastoral visit in Paris at this time is it takes your clergy upwards of 4 or 5 hours in a day to make a pastoral visit, by the nature of people's locations, where they are, transportation, and so on and so forth. It's challenging, but we need that information so that we can, your next dean will need that information.
And my question is maybe, well, it's a remark more. It's a sort of a compliment to what we've been saying about, I think, at least 3 of the pillars. So Christian formation, outreach, and not worship, so the other one is?
Ministry.
And pastoral care. Yeah, I'm the safeguarding officer for the convocation, and I don't have a contact person who is safeguarding officer for the cathedral. And with our level of programming and education and outreach, I think this would be a very important person to identify. The obvious part of safeguarding is having to do e-learning so that you can say, I understand the policies, I understand the rules. I also hope to stimulate conversations around what it means to be a church that seeks to take care of all of its members and all the people it serves, including the most vulnerable. So I just maybe put that request to the vestry to say, you know, could you, if you have somebody that I don't know of, please let me know. And if you don't, I'd be happy to discuss what that entails. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And you are correct. We at present do not have a safeguarding officer. So Kim is taking notes of that straight away, and we will turn that over to the next vestry, who will be composed at the end of this meeting, actually. So we need to leave a little bit of time.
Well, Jocelyn, I've spoken about this. It's on my to-do list before departure.
Very good. Francie. Thank you. Thank you, Francie. They can't hear online.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I was thinking of something practical, like offering that there were a few volunteers who are available to bring someone to church, pick them up or walk with them if they're nearby. People who don't feel confident coming on their own, or they don't have the same pleasure because they don't know everyone like they used to. That's one thing. I think there may be a book club in the offing. That's something that could be intergenerational, which is something that's probably, we're not talking about senior care here. We're talking about a community that thrives at all times.
Yeah.
So, good.
Great, thank you. And we do have the tricoteuse, which is led by Sue. So that is one opportunity to have intergenerational time together. Yes.
I just have a quick suggestion to bounce off of what was said. I think it could be beneficial to maybe have a mentorship program, because a lot of us arrived at church in our adulthood, and so we didn't have older Christians to look up to. And I think it would be interesting, and I speak as like one of the leaders of the 20s and 30s, it would be interesting to have, like, we don't know how to make those connections with people that were there at the cathedral or in some sort of church years and years ago. And so I think it would be really interesting, and there would be a real need for that for maybe the 20s and 30s, but maybe also younger people. One of the ways that we could find, meaning in the senior years could also be how we could merge that with young, very young children. Something to think about.
That's it. That's a great idea. Yes. Sue.
I would like to talk a little bit about the tricoteurs, the knitters. This is a group that was started by our beloved Sigurd, whom we miss. And in fact, I am the only member from this cathedral who goes to the tricoteurs, which I help lead. So I will encourage anybody here who knits or sews, or who would just like to come and chat. We have some people who pretend to knit, but they just come. They just come and chat on Monday afternoons. Anybody who would like to is welcome, and this group is very bilingue. About half our members are French-speaking because they were all recruited by SIGIN, and some of them don't speak much English at all, so we alternate or we speak Fringlish. But we are very friendly, and we encourage and would love to have more members from the American Cathedral in Paris. A lot of our members come from the American Church, and some people just come because they find us online and they don't belong to any church. They just want to come and knit.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sue, for representing us. Yeah, so we have just 2 minutes before we need to adjourn.
10 seconds. I've seen it done in other churches, like our church in Duxbury, Massachusetts. Coffee, cathedral coffee, church coffee. Meet every Monday at 10 o'clock at the down here at the corner. Or something like that. That would be.
Yep, a way to bring people together.
Voila.
Yep.
At their will and so on.
Thanks, Patricia. Great. So. Quick, Jocelyn.
Since we're doing a collective brainstorming, I would vote for, and I would be happy to help you think about how to run pastoral care by Zoom. Because I have discovered in the pandemic that you can coach by Zoom, you can lead collective development by Zoom, you can do an awful lot. So it could save 3 hours of your day plus the carbon.
That's absolutely right. That won't be on my to-do list over the next 8 weeks, but the safeguarding officer will.
Thank you. So we do need to adjourn. We need to let the choir get ready for church as well, and let us all find our places and get ourselves in the proper mindset to enjoy ministry. So do we want to announce the winners? The next vestry class? Those called, yes, not winners. Sorry. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I said, I don't want to say winners. Those who have been called by the members of the cathedral to be the next vestry class. Bill, do you want to, or Andrew, who headed that? Louis Roth is here. He will certify. So Louis Roth, in case you don't know, is our chancellor, and we are thankful for him as well. So here you go.
So first of all, I want to thank everyone who stood for Vestry. It's a real credit to you and your standing among the congregation that you were nominated. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself forward, so we really appreciate that. And I'll read out the names of those who are elected to the next class, but I hope all of you who are nominated will continue to be fully engaged in the place. The harvest is great, but the labors are few. There's always stuff to do here, so please do continue to be involved and increase your engagement. So the 5 people who are elected to the vestry in alphabetical order are Chris Barnes, Sylvie Bototeme, Elizabeth Haynes, Jeffrey Jennings, and Christian Martel. Thank you to all of you who stood.
And I repeat Louis's note. We often engage those who have run but were not selected to either fill in if someone needs to depart early, or especially to be the leaders of key projects. So we will not let you go far, and Joyce certainly knows how to find you as well. So thank you all. So do you want to make a motion?
Motion to close the meeting? Motion to close the meeting?
Do you have a second?
Dennis, yep.
All in favor? Great. Anyone abstaining or against us closing the meeting and turning over to service?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Janet.